This is a canvas on which I already tried it once, the background, but it doesn't matter even if you're starting with a blank canvas. That's how it'll feel like, because my whole intent when I started with this painting was to repaint the canvas. So imagine that you have the blank canvas with you right now. You need these paints, white, blue, black. This not black, this is purple. It looks black in the video here right now. The idea is to just give a feel of a mysterious dark evening. This is a very Japanese kind of painting. This is a very Zen painting, so to say. So you see here I'm mixing colors because that's something which gives it more fluidity, more of playfulness. Mix your colors well. If you know that white is going to bleed into blue, blue is going to bleed into purple, mix them a little bit and keep them ready. Then take generous amount of water, like good amount of water in your brush, and just go at it. To start with, I started with white because I wanted to give the central part a feeling of halo coming out. When you're doing it on white canvas, maybe it'll be tough for you to see the white this bright because you'll be starting from white, but it's just all the white paint. And whether it's a blank canvas, which already looks white, or it's a white paint, you can tell the difference because paint has a very specific texture. Once you paint the canvas with a layer of paint, you'll be able to see that that is a layer of paint on top of the canvas, even if the paint is white. So you see it's white to start with in the middle. My brush is dry, so I'm taking more water in. This is the key. Always you need to know how much of water you need in the brush. And this is something which comes with practice. There's no key to it, but you need to have that flow in your brush that you want to have in your painting. I mixed a little bit of blue on the side and see how I'm working that white circle out from outside in. That's mostly because the outside part was still wet, and that's where I need the blue to merge in. So I'm not being afraid of where I'm going as long as it's circular. Start with sides of the white, work your way blue inside it. Then go to more and more of blue and purple, because as you move outside, it's getting darker and darker. The halo is in center, it's in between. You see how my brush, my big flat brush, has purple on one side and white on the other side. Like when I'm doing these strokes, you can see that the brush is not carrying just one flat color, but it's carrying a shade of two different colors. Now that I have a ring of purple outside the circle, I'm just going on merging it, making it more smooth. You can leave it at any point of time depending on how much texture you want it. Like if you leave it with broad strokes, and that's a different kind of feel altogether. But for this one, I think I'm going to smoothen it out a lot so that it gives a very uniform feel. Again, taking a lot of purple outside and working now way in, working through the corners. You can keep on working on it as long as the paint is not 100% dry. Even if it is 100% dry, you need to start with the shade that you are working on right now. Just merging the purple with the blue, letting it bleed in, you see. And all of this is possible because none of the layers are dry yet. That's what happens when you do in one sitting. This is the part that people enjoy a lot in paint nights and those kind of events where you make the whole painting in one sitting. Right now, what I'm making is just the background. Now is a good time to start making branches on it. So to make the branches, I'm going to use black color. Black that I'm using is Carbon Black by Desirous. It's a liquid black paint, but it's pretty opaque. This is one of the flat brushes, so I'm going to pick a couple of different ones here. One which is kind of half an inch wide, but as I work on the branches and the ends, I would need a thin brush for it as well. So this brush I'll use for the tips. And let's see, let's try to find some more brushes. It doesn't hurt actually. You could have just two size brushes, one thick and one thin, or you could do it all by thin. When you're using liquid paint like this, the trick is to balance the consistency in your brush before you put it on the canvas. So play with the brush, just keep going around till you find that you have the perfect mix of water and the paint, and the paint is like pretty liquid. In this case it is already liquid, so it's easy. Yeah, once you feel like this is a smooth feel to the paper, then you can start moving on to the canvas. The beauty about drawing a tree is that you can start from anywhere and you can take it to where you want. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that wherever it branches, wherever it forks off, it should become thinner in width from there. You'll see as we go ahead. Whenever a tree branches, the branches are thinner as compared to the stem. So in this case, even though I'm starting from the wide black strokes, you see that I'm going to branch it here, and this branch is going to be thinner than the original stroke that you see. When trying to make bold linear strokes like this with a brush, always make sure that your brush has enough water in it. It is enough smooth and fluid. Branches are very organic. So unless you're doing literally things, bending, making your branches at 90 degree or 60 degree, something like that, you can go with an organic stroke, how your hand moves and flows, and the branches can very easily be shaped that way. Just try avoiding hard angles whenever you're trying to make a branch. Branching is like an act of load balancing for trees. Whenever a tree grows straight up, it branches right, left, and in opposite directions to balance its load. The trees who don't branch off, like palm trees, you must have seen, like they just grow straight up. But any tree that branches off will try to balance itself. It's just very natural. So now that I'm done with the thick part of the branches, I need a finer brush to work on further branching of these ends. So I'm going to use a fine round brush. And I'm going to use some music back in the video as well. See how I have made the tree so branched out right now, with most of the thinner branches towards the end. And every time two branches join, it just is thickens, every time two branches join, thickens. I have most of the branches inclined towards this way because that's what I was trying. But the branches usually just go towards the sun, You must have seen plants growing towards the sun. Trees can come in all the different shapes. Like, have you ever seen an oddly shaped tree? I mean, of course, I've seen oddly shaped trees, but what I'm trying to say is like trees can go in any way, and there's nothing imperfect with them. And the same goes for painting trees. You can go in any way, but as long as you're not just going, at 90 degrees or at very inorganic angles, you'll end up making a nice tree. Then the next step is the sun. Sun as a prominent red circle over there to give it a complete contrast. Now to add colors to the painting. So far it's about the background. There are many ways in which you can make a circle, but what I'm going to use is a stencil and a spray paint, because a perfect circle is a perfect circle. Like, there are many ways in which you can make circle, and that depends on what feel you are in, what shape do you want in your painting. But for this one, this is all about organic and inorganic feels. And in nature, if you find something circular, it's always a perfect circle. I want the sun to be the biggest circle in the stencil, because that literally stands out right next to the tree. One of the first thing I need to do is to find the right red color. Here is my spray paint collection. And what I'm looking for is this color. This is prim magenta. This is semi-transparent. So do I want to use semi-transparent, a couple of layers, or a solid for a single layer? This is semi-opaque, pyrrole red. This is a bright red color, and this is semi-opaque, so that's a good thing, because in one coat I'll be able to cover the whole circle red. Since now I'm going to spray over the stencil for the circle part, I'm looking for papers to just cover the sides so that I can prevent from any spillover happening here. Whenever you're using a spray paint, just check once if the nozzle is clean. If you've used it already, there are chances that there's something inside it. And also, before you actually use it on the canvas, it's always a good idea to shake it and test it somewhere. Usually when you test it, you do it upside down. You turn the can upside down and then test it. And then again test it with the can upright, and then start your spray. You can do it in a balcony or something if your room doesn't allow it. Keep a constant pressure on in your finger when you're spraying the paint. Know when it's too much and when it's time to stop. Don't just let the whole paper get wet. As soon as you see like one solid coat of paint is done, stop, check. If it is done, it is done. And then allow it to dry. Let it take as much time as it needs for everything around what you've sprayed to dry. And then once it is dry, just take out everything that has been covering the painting and like literally just look at the beauty of perfection of shapes and nature. Now is the time that I want some blue streaks across it. These blue streaks are kind of the rays of light, and I'm going to use this particular metallic blue pen for that. It's a Molotov pen. You have the description for this pen in the video description. The important thing about using this pen is that before you use it, you gotta press it against the paper a couple of times. You know, the ink flows from inside out. The whole tip goes inside. And once you do that, you find a consistency that you can work with. Then it's time to move it to canvas. A few parallel lines just going there side by side to give that hint of the rays, straight rays coming through. This is how it looks. And this metallic blue stands out on the canvas from the rest of the paint that you're using. So it's pretty prominent and pretty visible. I would advise you to experiment with the metallic colors that come from Molotov. You'll find around the 4 or 5 shades, and you can use whichever shade you like if you're going to buy it online. Give it some time to dry, because these paints which are coming out of the sketch of the pen are also kind of wet when they're just on the paper. So give it some time to dry. Don't rush into it. But once it is dry, it's time now for the yellow flowers to come in. Now take a dollop of paint and use your thin fine brush, a round fine brush, to properly dip it in the paint to have the brush loaded with the paint. You will notice that you won't need to add water to this paint. It's already pretty liquidy. And when you now take it to the canvas, all you have to do is to drop the paint on the canvas. So it's supposed to be just a touch and go. Think of it as you're trying to make petals of the flower. So it's just one stroke, a single stroke, which gives a bold print on the canvas. On all the ends, all the tips of the branches that you see there, add 3 or 4 petals like this, the yellow petals. You can be creative with whatever kind of end flowers that you want on your tree. It can be very well orange in my imagination right now. It can be even electric blue. It can be green, fluorescent green, and giving an impression of the leaves. But do whatever feels like you. And the whole point is that once you start adding those endpoints, those flowers, this whole tree starts getting life. You can see that this now, so far, as it has been just a dead branch in the background of a big red sun, now it is giving that feel of a blooming spring plant. And as you go on doing it, once it is complete, this completely changes the visual. This completely changes the feel of the painting. Once it's done, you have to let it dry. These yellow paints, since they are thick dollops of paints, they will take some time to dry out and allow time for them to be completely dry. This is the end state of the painting, kind of the end state. And you see how the whole idea here shows that there's nature and at the same time there is a conflicting part of human intervention in that nature. All the scaffolds that you see, they look like something under construction in the right and in the left, and while the tree gets a chance to bloom through these man-made interruptions that we have, it gives you that tension, that energy that is shared between man and nature. So onto the scaffolds. Those are very geometric figures. You must have seen them in buildings under construction anywhere. And all you need for that is the black marker, acrylic marker, and using a scale you can go on giving any pattern that you would like. If you want to copy this pattern that I have in this painting, go ahead and do that. But the whole idea is to have a very structured shape on both the sides to give that feeling in the painting. As of now, I'm just randomly adding shapes and making this whole structure gain some kind of solidity. You see at the bottom here, I've made those things black, solid black, and the lines on the top there, like the scaffolds, gives you that illusion of this tree being in the middle of a construction zone and still maintaining the overall zen harmony of the painting. You can go on and work on the structures as much as you want. In the final finished painting, I have few more elements added, and you'll see that at the end of this video. But the whole point here is there's no fixed way of doing it. You just have to let your rhythm guide how and what kind of structure do you want to give it. I always finish my paintings around the edges, so in here you can see that I'm working the edges, and the same applies to all the different lines that are flowing through the edges of the canvas. Because once it is done, it gives the whole painting a very complete, fuller feel. So go ahead, depending on how you like it, either complete those or just leave them as it is. After this, it's up to you, up to your creativity. Wherever you want to take this painting, you can.